And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us once again across the Louisiana plain, where we are elevating the cause of constitutional conservatism in Louisiana, elevating the cause of constitutional conservative citizens across the state, and rapidly now draining the Louisiana swamp. My name is Chris.
And I'm Danielle, and this is The State of Freedom, brought to you by freedom-loving Louisiana First Patriots. Hello, State of Freedom warriors. Thank you for inviting us to be part of your day. We are so grateful for you. You're the best listening family anyone could possibly hope for, and we are only here because of your encouragement, your prayers, and your financial support. If you are looking for a way to support us, to advertise with us, or to send us feedback, please visit our website at freedomstate.us. We'd really appreciate it if you'd also help us get the word out and spread the reach of the State of Freedom. Please like the show on whatever platform you listen to us, subscribe to it, and share it. You can share short clips instead of the full episodes from our YouTube and Rumble channels, and links to those are always in the show notes and over on freedomstate.us. Thanks for joining us for the second half of our interview with West Virginia Secretary of State, Mac Warner. Secretary Warner, your perspective is so refreshing. You really strike me as someone who is very much, call it like you see it. What advice would you give other secretaries of state, like our new Secretary of State, for instance, Nancy Landry, for ensuring that their state's elections are fair, transparent, and clean, and that they're appropriately executing the duties of their office?
Well, several things. I love the interaction that NAS allows us, the National Association of Secretaries of State. It allows me to meet and interact with Nancy Landry and other secretaries across the U.S. And each of us has our own perspectives. We come from different parts of the United States geographically. We come at it from cultural differences and so on. And so there is great value in getting us together. We do it twice a year. And my advice to the new secretaries would be to get tuned into these concerns at the national level, such as trying to keep Trump off the ballot. We saw in the states, and I'm so glad the Supreme Court has slapped that down. But also then with your fellow secretaries, their experiences. Some of these secretaries have been around for actually decades. They've seen the development. They saw that a lot of this attention on secretaries didn't occur until the 2016 election, and now everybody sees how important it is when a secretary, such as in Colorado or Maine or Illinois, tries to keep a presidential candidate off the ballot. That's an awful lot of power. Now, again, that has just here in the last few days been put back into its place. But the other is to listen to your constituencies. And so there in Louisiana, you would have a lot of people with concerns, whether it might be over voting machines or the auditing process or any aspect of the election process. And we talk about the ecosystem. Unfortunately, a lot of people tend to focus on simply that election day and say a stuffing of a ballot box or a hacking of a machine. But really, it's the process that starts months ahead of time during the registration process, during the getting poll workers, getting the early voting in place, all that up through election day, and then the post-election, which is the auditing and the certification. Problems can take place in any one of those areas, and it can be just as damaging as stuffing a ballot box, as again, we saw with the Hunter Biden laptop. You've already said that. I think I heard the numbers between 4 and 17%. I heard you mention maybe as many as 25% of the people that voted for Joe Biden would not have voted for him had they known the Hunter Biden laptop was real. That's enough to change the outcome of that election without stuffing one ballot box. It was misleading. So that's my advice to secretaries.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And just for our benefit, what kind of election system does West Virginia have? I think you might know that Louisiana is a full dominion state, which causes us no small amount of concern here because of what we've seen in Atlanta with Alex Halderman and his hacking of the machine in front of a federal judge. But anyway, what have you done in West Virginia? What does the system look like there?
We have moved to the express vote system. ES&S does that. And this election will be the first time that all 55 counties in West Virginia will use the express vote system. And I make the analogy, we have Sheetz here. I don't know if you do or not, but it's a gas station that also serves food and so on. And when you go in to buy a lunch item from Sheetz, You have the technology, or many people at McDonald's has the kiosks or whatever. You simply pull up the screen and you say, yes, I want mayonnaise, or I don't want pickles, and that sort of thing. It's the same technology. Yes, I want Donald Trump, and I don't want somebody else. And what it happens is that then spits that paper back out. That's an electronic marking device. It's not a tabulator. It spits the ballot back out, and you get to personally hold that and look at that piece of paper. That's called a voter verified paper trail. So we do have paper ballots in West Virginia. We simply mark it with an electronic pen. And the reason for that is it eliminates a lot of the human error. If a ballot says vote for 2, say in a city council race, on a piece of paper, like you would take an ACT or an SAT test, you could actually fill in 3 or 4 bubbles. And when you do that, that invalidates your vote. When you're using an electronic pen, if you try to mark more than 2, it won't let you. It will remind you can only vote for 2. And it fills in that oval completely, as opposed to using a pencil and paper. Somebody might put a check mark or an X. And then another person in the canvassing process gets to determine whether that vote counts. Does the X mean, yes, I want that person, or no, I hate that person? And so stray marks, hesitation marks, and so on, your ballot gets determined, or your vote gets determined by somebody outside the voter themselves. None of us want that. We want our own vote to count and to know that every vote is counted only once. So that's the system that we're using. We're very comfortable with it. The other aspect of this is the paper goes through a tabulator so that and the voter drops that into the tabulator themselves. So it's a secret ballot the whole time. The tabulator counts that vote, so you have election results on election night, which is what everybody wants. You don't want to string this out for 2 or 3 weeks. That's when all the conspiracy theories enter in. But you then have the paper ballot, and after the election, you do an audit, and you compare the hand-counted votes with the tabulated votes. And in all the elections I've run, probably 7 or 8 elections now, the only discrepancy we've had, and it's been less than a handful of times, was in the hand-counting votes, when there was a discrepancy between that and the tabulated votes. And when we went back and counted the hand votes a second time, we found out it was the human error, not the machine error, that caused those discrepancies. So we've had no lawsuits. We've had no problems with elections here in West Virginia. And that's my experience. I can't speak to the Dominion experience because I haven't used it firsthand, but I'm very pleased with the system we have.
And yours is, you said, is ES&S, Mac?
Yes.
ES&S system. I want to switch gears for a second here, Matt, because we know we're a bit short on time here, but I've got to get your view, particularly drawing on your background as an attorney, your view of the very recent U.S. Supreme Court decision that reversed the Colorado Supreme Court 9-0 unanimous at the U.S. Supreme Court, which said that states do not have the constitutional authority under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to remove a candidate for federal office from a ballot. They can manage and regulate their own races, but there is no authority under the Constitution to remove a federal candidate for federal office. That seems to me, drawing on my background and looking at the 14th Amendment, that didn't seem like a particularly close call at all. And it doesn't surprise me that the Supreme Court ruled that way 9-0. What are your thoughts on the ruling, both from a legal perspective, and what does it mean as far as any continued challenges to Trump being on the ballots in other states?
Well, you're absolutely correct. The 9-0 vote shows that it wasn't a close call. It was very clear that these officials and the Supreme Court was out of place, both in Colorado and in Maine and Illinois, on several occasions. First, they were making a determination that an insurrection had occurred when, in fact, there had never been a charge of an insurrection, there had never been a conviction. That was outside, in the law, it's called ultra vires, outside the authority for them to be making those calls. But more importantly, what the Supreme Court decision said is the states aren't enabled to make these determinations in a federal election, to be making federal decisions on whether somebody should appear on a ballot at the federal level. Otherwise, you would have this patchwork of, Colorado and Maine keeping Trump off, Florida, West Virginia, Louisiana having Trump on the ballot. You'd have this patchwork, and how can you have a fair election when the states are deciding things differently? So we filed an amicus brief, a friend of the court brief, that said we agree with the position that says this is not the authority of a state elected official to make. Our job is ministerial. If somebody is a citizen, if they meet the age requirement, they filed properly, it's our job to put them on the ballot. It's not our job to make these independent decisions as to whether they should be on the ballot or not. And that's what the Supreme Court decided. I'm very pleased that they, in a 9-0 decision, made it very clear to everybody, let's stop this lawfare where they're afraid they can't beat Trump at the polls, so we're going to try to keep him off by filing lawsuits and that sort of thing, no matter how frivolous. So I think we've put this one to rest, and I'm looking forward to he will be on the ballot in all 50 states.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Okay, we're very much looking forward to that, and it's good to know that hopefully this will put an end to that, at least that angle that they're taking. I noticed in the decision, Mac, that the Supreme Court did not directly address whether or not Trump had committed insurrection, which is not uncommon. They're going to focus on the issue that is before them. Do you take anything away one way or the other regarding the Supreme Court's leanings or inclinations with regard to whether or not Trump committed an insurrection?
Well, clearly he didn't commit an insurrection. There's an interesting case that goes back here to West Virginia called Blennerhassett Island, where Aaron Burr actually was charged with treason, and John Marshall, the Supreme Court justice, decided there wasn't. There was even an incident where some people raised some weapons against the federal troops. And even that, it was such a minor incursion that he said that wasn't sufficient for there to be an insurrection. So what happened on January 6th was a protest that turned into a mob, that turned into a riot, but there was no insurrection. There's no coordinated effort to try to overthrow the government.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Last point on this, and then I know Danielle's got another question for you. I just wanted to make sure our listeners are aware of what I'm sure you already know. Section 3 of the 14th Amendment was passed in order to prohibit former leaders of the Confederate government who had sworn hostility against the United States and fought in a war and held office in the Confederate government, to prohibit them from thereafter holding office in the United States government. But in that situation, clearly you could make a compelling argument that was rebellion, that was insurrection. But when you look at the historical reason and justification for Section 3, it makes an argument against Trump having committed insurrection just so much weaker. It's like it doesn't even rise to the level of what the framers of Section 3 even had in mind when they drafted and established Section 3. So I just wanted to bring that out. It seems a very, very weak case by comparison against Trump of insurrection under the 14th Amendment.
It absolutely is, but that doesn't deter them. They want to throw as much as they can at Trump to occupy his time, his money, his legal teams, and so on. They're throwing it at him in Georgia and New York and on and on. It's time for all that nonsense to go away. Let's have an election. Let's let the people decide who the president's going to be, not the courts.
So well
Amen.
said. And you have an election coming up as well. I'm excited to share a fantastic opportunity for State of Freedom listeners who are interested in investing in precious metals or even starting a home-based business in the precious metals industry. Metal Stacks is a precious metals collectors club where you can buy your metals at the best prices on the market, actual dealer cost. They are beating the big sites. They have no credit card fees and no minimums. If you're just interested in purchasing metals at a great price, visit metalstacks.com/dwalker. Get to shopping. That helps me out. I get the commission. You can also refer people to Metal Stacks for an additional income. If you're interested in learning about the referral business aspect of Metal Stacks, email me directly at danielle@freedomstate.us for more information. Tell us how your run for governor of West Virginia is going. Yeah, let us know.
It's great. I really appreciate that. People can learn more at macwarner.com, MACWARNER.com. That's my website. I'm the only veteran in the race. I openly speak about my profound faith, Christian faith. If they want to call me a Christian nationalist, whatever, I'll wear that badge with pride. I love the nation. It's going very well. There are 4 main contenders. We're all right there in the 20s with regards to polling. The key is there's about 20% that's undecided or not affiliated with a party. That's where the race is. If I simply have the money, I don't have the millions of dollars that some of the other candidates do. Club for Growth is supporting the Attorney General. Club for Growth is an anti-Trump group. Americans for Prosperity is an anti-Trump group. They've been supporting Nikki Haley up until the last week. They're behind the Attorney General. So yet he's trying to claim that he's the conservative or whatnot. He's from New Jersey. He's now come down here. He has his sights. Why would they put $10 million into a governor's race in West Virginia when our own governor, a billionaire, only put $5 million of his, into his race? It's because they have their eye on the U.S. Senate, not the governor's seat. They want him to be. See, $10 million for a U.S. Senate seat is pretty cheap, and that's what they're trying to do. The Attorney General ran against Joe Manchin back in 2018. They pumped a bunch of money into that. Now they're pumping more money in because they want him to be a U.S. Senator, not governor. The other one is Moore Capito, is Shellen Moore Capito's son, a senator from West Virginia. He's using Larry Puccio as a consultant. Larry Puccio was the former Democratic chair here in West Virginia, also Joe Manchin's right-hand man, Governor Tomlins, Governor Justice, all Democrat governors when they were elected. So we don't want to let the Democratic chair step into basically the governor's seat. So I'm the conservative that you can rely on, the veteran, the churchgoer, and if I simply have enough funds to reach those undecided voters, I'm going to win this race.
Two questions on this, Mac. What, in a nutshell, distinguishes you from every other candidate in the race? And secondly, has Trump weighed in yet on it?
What distinguishes me is my experience. I talked to you about the Afghanistan, running large agencies. I've advised the Supreme Court, Ministry of Justice, and so on. What's a governor do? He runs large agencies or oversees them and makes sure that the appropriate people are in place. That's what the Army has taught me my entire life, is that teamwork, pulling in the same direction. And if you surround yourself with good people, you're going to do great things. And that's what I've done as Secretary of State. I've taken off over 400,000 names from our voter registration list. That's what the people charged me to do when I came into this office. We only have 1.1 million registered voters in West Virginia. We've taken off 400,000 names. That's how bloated the rolls have gotten. I've leveraged technology. We're leading the nation with regards to a business one-stop where you can register by phone at home at night in your pajamas. I know what the power of technology is. I could talk on and on about that. So that's what I want to do for government, for all of West Virginia government, is streamline it, right size it, and leverage technology. I plan to be the education governor. I will focus on reading at grade level by third grade. So we need to do early education, early childhood education, because if you get people reading at grade level, the first 3 years, you're learning to read. After that, you're reading to learn. So that's why we have to have focus on education early on. And if you do that, then you're ready to get a job. Then you can add to the economy, be an entrepreneur, and so on. So all of this stuff is intertwined. We have a great opioid crisis here, as I'm sure a number of states do. I have plans to address that. But it's this experience that the military has taught me. Staffing things in the military, you have a one shop, which is personnel, two is intelligence, three is operations, four is logistics. That's how government should be looking at problems to solve things through the right people, staffing it, bringing the options to the governor, and then I've been trained to make those right decisions to move the state forward. So I really appreciate y'all asking that. And again, macwarner.com is a place to go to get more information.
I was just going to ask if Trump has made any announcements or said anything about your race.
He has not. I think he's going to stay out of this until after the primary. Each of these candidates have our own strengths or weaknesses. And so I think he was burned in a couple cases we saw in Georgia, those situations where we lost 2 Senate seats. So I think as soon as we have the primary, I think that's when he will weigh in.
Well, we're certainly going to encourage him and everybody else we know who has any involvement, not only to support you and help you, but to encourage that endorsement from President Trump for you. You're a very impressive American and a true patriot.
I will say this, General Flynn has endorsed me. Michelle Bachmann has endorsed me. David Barton has endorsed me. So I think that shows both the military side, the religious side. You don't get much bigger names than that to support you. So I am proud of those endorsements. I am a lifetime member of the NRA. I'm a lifetime member of the American Legion, lifetime member of the Veterans of Foreign Wars. So my credentials are pretty solid. In fact, much more solid than the other candidates in this race. And you really don't get much more conservative. As I said, all 4 of my children served in the military. One's still a company commander down at Fort Bragg. A son-in-law is deployed overseas right now in the Special Forces. So you've got somebody who truly America first, make America great again candidate here. I want to join governors like Youngkin in Virginia, DeSantis in Florida, Stitt in Oklahoma, Abbott in Texas, Huckabee in Arkansas. Those are good conservative Republicans, and I'd like to add West Virginia to that list of solid conservatives who will push back against the swamp in D.C. and stand to secure the border and push back against government overreach from Washington, D.C.
Awesome.
You couldn't have ended it on a better note. To push back against government overreach, drain the swamp, and protect our border. Mac, those sounds like winning issues to me. Thank you for being here with us today, and God bless you, sir. We hope to have you back on soon. Keep up the good work. There's a lot of people who are very inspired by your effort.
Thank you so much. You guys are great Americans, and I appreciate the offer to talk with you.
Thank you. West Virginia is blessed to have you. Chris, I just don't know even what to say. He's a patriot and a man of faith and a gentleman, and I think he will do great things for the state of West Virginia if he can beat out the long tentacles of the arms of the swamp.
Absolutely, that's what it is. This is a classic battle of patriotism and constitutionalism against the swamp and against the deep state. That's what's occurring here, and it will be an epic battle.
Financially, the amount of money that they're pouring into that race is just tremendous.
Yeah, and they're jockeying ultimately for the U.S. Senate, as he said, by propping up someone in the governor's office and then run for Senate. So it's all political from their end, whereas he seems to be approaching it from really a position of desiring to serve the public and to be a true public servant and a faithful public servant.
I really appreciate that he has come out so strongly and has not forgotten the Hunter Biden laptop. I think it's something that we have allowed, because there's so much corruption in the government, specifically with the Biden family. It's easy to gloss over and forget all of the different ways that our government has betrayed the trust of the American people and has really obscured what's going on at the highest levels of government. So I really appreciate his laser focus on that, his unwillingness to let that go, his calling out of elected officials and agency officials for the part they played in that. I think it's just tremendous, and I appreciate his dog with a bone approach on that.
Absolutely. All it takes is courage. And, as we pointed out on the show, their suppression of our speech, they're colluding to do so with big tech. It goes far beyond just Hunter Biden. As important as that was, they were suppressing millions of Americans' speech on any issue related to election integrity if they disagreed with it. It was just gone. And when you have a government by government decree and by pressuring big tech social media platforms to crush and suppress constitutionally protected speech, when your government is doing that, that is not a free republic. And that is extraordinarily alarming. And he's right. That can never be allowed to happen again. And there's got to be real accountability.
Yeah. And my only bone to pick with him, honestly, is the ES&S system. I know our friend Matt Meck claims that there is no electronic system that is 100% secure. So it sounds like the ES&S ballot marking device is probably about as clean as it gets when it comes to that. But I'd love to hear Dr. Russ's take on that. I'd love to hear some of these election integrity experts who really go back every time to hand-counted paper ballots.
Yeah, and I'd like to have asked him, if we had time, about whether he's concerned about the extent to which, at least according to Haldeman, any electronic machine can be hacked and manipulated. There's not one that's not vulnerable to it, and get his thoughts on that. But we didn't have time today. I think you're right. Based upon what Max said, the ES&S structure that's set up in West Virginia may be the most secure as far as machines go. Yeah. Well, Danielle, I'm always thrilled to be with you today. I don't know if it's pouring down rain where you are, but we got a good old-fashioned toad strangler coming down here in Baton Rouge right now. But you know what? We move on through snow, through rain, through sleet, climb mountains, cross oceans, and tread the highest plains in order to protect and preserve freedom and liberty in Louisiana and across the country. And I'm so thankful for our many listeners. I'm so thankful for the State of Freedom. I'm so thankful for you as we grow and grow and grow each day to become the voice of constitutional liberty in Louisiana.
Yeah, me too, Chris. We have so much to be grateful for. We have so much to prepare for and to kind of get out in front of. So if listeners are looking for a way to support the State of Freedom, they can do that at freedomstate.us. Or if you'd like to send a gift, you can do that at P.O. Box 861, Berg, Louisiana, B-O-U-R-G, Louisiana, 70343. Also, we very strongly encourage you to do the same at LeCag, lecag.org. Donate, become a member, join our ranks, and for crying out loud, sign up for the Action Center. If you don't do anything else, sign up for the Action Center and get involved by making your voice to your elected officials known. And Chris, people can also give a gift by sending it to a P.O. box. Would you give them the P.O. box?
Sure. LeCag is LACAG, P.O. Box 64952, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, 70896. We can win for the citizens if we have the resources to build the infrastructure, to continue to build the infrastructure that we need to hold our elected officials accountable and to make sure that their voters know exactly what is going on and what they are doing so that you can make an informed decision about whether they should be reelected. We are fighting hard in the legislature for good legislation to help you and to defeat bad legislation that hurts you. They've got a lot of big, deep pocket, corrupt special interest donors in the legislature, and we are the antidote to all of that. And that is why we need your resources so that we can compete on a level playing field. They don't have any better fighters than us. We're the better fighters. We're the most informed, the most articulate. We just need a good loaded gun to go in and do what has to be done on the battlefield. And that's why your donations and your support to LeCag are so very important, and we appreciate it so deeply. And if everybody does what they can do, Danielle, everybody doesn't have to do everything. Everybody just has to do something.
That's right.
If everybody does something, then we will have what we need each and every day to continue to preserve the great state of freedom in Louisiana.
Amen. So true, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the State of Freedom. To stay on top of all the calls to action we mentioned today, just check out the show notes for the episode. If you'd like to support the show financially, visit our website at freedomstate.us. If you'd prefer to give by mail, you can send a check to the State of Freedom, LLC at P.O. Box 861, Berg, Louisiana, 70343. If you own a business in Louisiana and are interested in supporting our show by advertising, please email us at info@freedomstate.us. To get involved with Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, visit lacag.org, LACAG.org, or email Chris at chris@lacag.org. If you're enjoying the podcast, please subscribe and share it. Give us a 5-star rating in the reviews. Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you next time.